Hello and welcome, Rec187 here, and we are back with Combat Mission Battle for Normandy and the third mission in the Scottish Corridor campaign. Now, before I go on and talk about this mission in particular, I did want to spend a quick minute or two just talking about the general content, or combat mission content I should say, that I'm putting out on YouTube. If that doesn't interest you and you just want to jump into action, then I'll put a timestamp down in the description to let you know where to skip ahead to. So those of you who caught my last video will have heard me at the end saying that I had been planning to move away from live streaming onto doing more pre-recorded combat mission content. And that's purely because I think combat mission works better where you can stick pause in the action and take some time away to kind of consider strategies and things which are happening as the mission progresses without the need to kind of constantly feed a live audience. The upshot of that, a couple of things, is one, I've been able to change the recording software that I'm using. So I was using Streamlabs OBS for streaming up to Twitch. Since I'm now separate that, I've moved over to Bandicam, and that has allowed me to significantly improve the graphics that I'm showing, which hopefully you should be able to see from the unit models and textures that you can see on the screen. If you caught some earlier videos, you'll have seen there was some significant issues like visual stuttering in bits and pieces. I had to really nerf all the settings for OBS to cope. Thankfully, Bandicam doesn't seem to have the same issues anyway, touch wood. And so I've been able to kind of turn those back up to the settings I was playing with before. So hopefully it should give you a better visual output for you guys. The other bit I want to mention with pre-recording is that I will try and do some of the more kind of labour-intensive or tedious bits off camera. So definitely want to continue talking about kind of strategies we're putting forward, watching the kind of live action turns and any small adjustments I'll do then and there. But if there's significant routes that I've got a map in for units, or like say at the start of this mission where I've gone ahead and issued all the orders already, I'm just going to do that off camera and hopefully keep the content a bit more engaging for everyone. With that, so I'm going to stick to kind of maybe 30-35 minute episodes, try and get out about 3 a week, but it should, with the kind of more stuff happening off camera, that should kind of chunk us through missions a bit quicker. And that's all I want to mention on the content. Hopefully that goes down okay, and we'll see how we go on here. But I'll jump out to a wider angle and we can start talking about the mission in particular. And yeah, so we are back with the 9th Cameronians. This time it's a defensive mission, which will be interesting. I think this is the first defensive mission I've actually played through. I think the other campaign, Courage and Fortitude, didn't really have any defensive ones in it. But I could be wrong in that regard. So yeah, we're back with C Company. Now, one interesting thing to note, which I wasn't expecting, so this is we've got the 13th, 14th and 15th platoons of C Company. So we've 13th split out over here. And I have broken down all the infantry sections into detachments. So all these icons you see are individual detachments rather than sections. But yes, we've got kind of the 3 sections of 13th platoon on the left hand side, and then we've got 15th platoon in the middle and 14th platoon kind of in reserve at the moment. But one interesting thing to note was that this is the same platoons we used in the first mission, and despite getting chewed up fairly heavily, they've been resupplied, which I wasn't expecting from the campaign brief. So not 100% sure why that's happened, but actually I won't complain about it. So yeah, we're back with full 10-man sections across the board, which is good, so it should make our life a little bit easier. In addition to supporting the infantry, we do have a couple of AT guns supported by Bren carriers. So we've got one already deployed in the mid here, and we've got another one which is still hooked up to its Bren carrier. We've also got the usual supporting in terms of mortar teams and Bren detachments that you get with your infantry squads, as well as one sniper and a couple of one sniper, one forward observer, and a couple of scouts, which we've kind of thrown in the mix. Later on in the mission, we are expecting some reinforcements. So after about 10 minutes, we'll get some 81mm off-map mortars. About 20 minutes, we're going to get the remnants of D Company, who we were playing with in the last mission. About 25 minutes, we should get some 25-pounder field guns. And finally, after about 30 minutes, we are going to get 3 Shermans. So 2 Sherman 2s and a Firefly, if I remember correctly. So it's going to kind of dribs and drabs as the mission progresses. In terms of the objective, we are to defend 2 points, Hansel in the centre here and Gretel. So this takes place just off the edge of the first mission map. So this house here, if I can sort the camera. Yeah, well, this house and this bunker here is actually the area we failed to take in our first mission. So we can kind of RP that the Germans thereby shortly after retreated and we took it from them. Yeah, so this is the area just behind it, and the town of Haut Bosq is just over here, kind of bottom left hand corner here. So we are facing approximately, or at least they said, a company's worth of infantry. So again, we can expect similar strength to our own, so kind of 3 platoons, 9 sections worth of infantry, supported by and they've kind of quote unquote Tiger tanks. And obviously the Tiger, which we talked about in the last mission, ended up being a Stug 3. So I'm kind of expecting more of the same. Stugs, maybe some Panzers, hopefully not anything heavier, because that would definitely present a challenge. In terms of initial setup, so I've got a bit of a thin blue line really, so we do have some of these defensive fortifications, foxholes essentially, and as it is, we're kind of presenting a long front, so just with our infantry spread out amongst the foxholes. We did have, and probably the most contentious decision that I really made in the setup, is we did have this first section of 13th Platoon out in front, again with some foxholes as a kind of forward tripwire type role. And I did consider what to do with them quite a lot. The initial thoughts about essentially leaving them in place, because they will obviously slow the German advance. They will probably manage to pick off a couple of units which first try and cross this open ground. So there was some advantages, but realistically, once they were engaged, I didn't have a great way of pulling them back in any kind of safe manner. And as soon as any armoured support showed, they had no answer to it, so they would just kind of get crushed. So ultimately, I decided actually I'm just going to pull them back and have them join the main line. We'll see how well that decision plans out. In terms of the terrain we're fighting against, I mean, it is really quite open beyond this initial line. So with the exception of this, obviously the wooded section where this first section are in, and it really does play into our advantage. So large swathes of open grass. It also rises up to a ridge. You can't really see it from this view, but kind of running along where this road is roughly is a ridge line. So we are presenting a bit of a reverse slope defence. It does mean the Germans will essentially have free reign beyond the ridge, but anything coming over that ridge we're going to get a good spot on. So not done anything too fancy with infantry. As I said, I've broken them down into individual detachments, spread them out. My biggest fear really is probably mortar fire, because we are quite susceptible to that, maintaining a fixed position with not a lot of cover around. So I've tried to spread them out a little bit to hopefully mitigate against that. I've set one AT gun up here, and he's got reasonable vision over the kind of right hand side of the field. And the second AT gun I'm bringing over into this field here, and his view kind of role will be to look at the left hand side and the centre, and also to cover this kind of road there. In terms of weak points, this, oddly enough, actually this centre avenue is probably doesn't have great cover in terms of anti-armour support. I hope this AT gun should get reasonable sight on it, but obviously it is partly obscured by these trees. And it does lead straight to the main objective. So that is a bit of concern of mine. I have tucked in some AT support in here just in case, but I mean, armoured's got to get pretty close for them to be any way, shape or form effective. Beyond that, the various Bren carriers we have, part of it came as part of our squads. I've essentially just tucked them out the way. I think they are just going to be easy pickings for any German armoured vehicles that do turn up, because we're going to provide bigger spots and aren't going to provide a lot for the fight. So I'm just going to move them out the way. Over on this right hand side, so again this is probably another slight chink in our armour. We've been informed that these houses have been marked by enemy artillery, so not a good idea to place a lot of troops in them. And we certainly have no one starting over on this flank. So I'm getting one of my, in fact I'm sending over two of my reserve sections to kind of help put some defence over here. First one just into these buildings in the actual Gretel itself, and second one I'm going to move up into this area here actually, just to provide again a little bit of a tripwire and some initial cover should they try and push infantry through these buildings and through the flank. Beyond that, there's not too much other details. I think it's really going to be a case of seeing where the Germans present themselves. I've got a couple of platoons hanging back a little bit in reserve, although don't have huge strength and depth to hopefully kind of plug any gaps if we do see a real showing of strength. In terms of our AT capabilities, so these 57mm AT guns, at the ranges we're talking about, should be able to punch through actually the front armor of really everything but a Tiger. I mean, we're not at really any great range at all. I mean, if I quickly jump into target, I mean, up to the ridge is about kind of 300 meter for 350 meters. So any armor which does show, these guys should be able to put a hole in it. But said, they obviously aren't in any cover, so any kind of any infantry getting close enough to put these guys under kind of serious machine gun pressure is going to be a concern. So we need to keep our eyes on that. I mean, like I said, it's going to be hold the line until our additional infantry, but really more importantly, our kind of armor support turns up and hopefully clears out any remaining Germans. Okay, and I think that really kind of covers the whole setup and what we're planning to do. I did mention our kind of concerns over this wooded area in the middle of the right, so I have made sure the mortar teams I've got sight on that, and once we get the fire support after 10 minutes again, it's probably a likely area we'll drop some rounds, but we'll have to really wait and see in terms of where the Germans show up. So I think we'll just 10 minutes in, haven't actually clicked the go button yet, but I think that's exactly what we shall do now. So not expecting really any first contacts, probably for the first maybe 5 minutes or so, especially as I'm pulling these guys back. As you can see, I've got a whole host of troops moving out to the right, again being quite blasé is the wrong word, but quite forward with their kind of moving orders, not worrying too much about cover. Again, I think they'll get to where they're going without any German contact. But again, I want to set up some kind of tripwire in these woods, just so we can't get outflanked. Beyond that, I have pulled a lot of the AT units back, just to be slightly behind the lines. I don't want them sitting on the front and getting picked off by MG fire or even bolt action or whatever comes their way, just in case it gets very close range and we do need it. Ooh, okay, early start from the Germans. So maybe I have to hold off these guys. So there you go. I was worried about mortars or artillery. That is certainly doing a number. So I'm going to get all these guys to hold off until this barrage finishes. In fact, I want you all just to pull back. So do you know what, I'll make use of my new software, throw in a quick cut while I just play around with these guys' movements orders. Okay, so I moved all those guys again, just going to pull them out of the way. I'll see how long this barrage lasts for. We do have one unit kind of in the corner here in the firing line who have copped a casualty already. Probably not a huge amount we can do about those. And we do have some of these troops in the building, but to be honest, I think they're just going to have to keep their heads down and hope for the best. And yeah, we've taken another casualty there. I did spot, just as I was moving it, that we actually won round, which was oddly enough miles off target. Took out one of my brain carriers on the road here. Which is a bit frustrating because it's now blocking the road, but yeah, that has been destroyed. And that was, almost got lucky with where that landed, because we've got a couple kind of sitting together. So this was the armor bearer team for this anti-tank gun here, which is just about in position, so we'll probably get it to detach next turn and get itself set up. So we can just throw the orders in for that. Well, maybe we have to wait till it's stopped. Alright, we'll get that. In fact, we'll just cancel its current orders. And we will get the team to dismount, so we can get them set up. Okay, pretty punching opening salvo, but thankfully we don't have too many units in these buildings, and again, we'll just have to pull these guys back and weather the storm a little bit. Let's see what the next minute brings us. Oh, that's interesting. Apparently that's it for the barrage. That was very short and sharp. Turns out for once my caution of pulling everyone back has not been required. But that's okay. I'd rather have done this than left behind a load of injuries. Casualties, I should say. So we've got this team pulling back as well now, which is good. They've made it safely back. We do have some people set up in the second story buildings, like this HQ is a good example. So teams with binoculars who have put a limit on their engagement distance. Because really the primary role I want from these guys is to, from our elevated position, to be spotting the Germans and sharing that with the team. What I don't want is them to engage at extreme long range, give themselves away, and then be taken out by some kind of artillery, not artillery, armoured vehicle, essentially. So I've got a couple of those spread out along the line. Okay, I now think it's safe for these guys to go back in, so I'm going to throw another quick pause just while I issue their orders. Okay, so that's their movement orders set up. So like I said, we've got third section just taking up position in the houses in Gretel itself. And then I think it's first section moving in to provide this kind of tripwire over here. I've also got their Bren section coming around into this hedge line just to provide an element of kind of enfilading fire against any assaults down the kind of centre of the map. Obviously it depends where the Germans kind of make their push. It still feels a little bit weak, so when we do get our reinforcements, which admittedly isn't coming until about 20 minutes, I'm going to push some additional support around this section. Meanwhile, I did also get the AT gun set up, or got a movement to set up. He's just going to move slightly away from the Bren carrier itself and kind of set themselves up in the field. The reason the screen has gone purple is because I've given them an armour a target order, essentially. So just by saying you can setting a range of, I can't remember, a kilometre or something ridiculous like that, but it's essentially shoot it wherever you want as long as it's armour. I don't want them engaging troops and giving themselves away. And I also picked up this AT armour carrier. He's recovered from his stresses in the Bren getting taken out, and he's going to move along and support his AT gun as well. And that's it, and we'll hit the next minute and we will see if we get any spots. Feeling that hopefully these guys can get into position without any further incidents. So you can see we're unfortunately leaving a couple of dead bodies behind. So one rifleman from this section, one of the mortar team as well. Which I suppose leads me to think if their initial artillery barrage is here. Oh, see, now they've caught me by starting and stopping. I think... Oh, tank spot. I feel I may have walked into the trap here. I think we're getting away okay so far. But it's making me heckin' nervous. Whoa, I think just luck more than anything else. Oof, okay. Ouch. So I can see at least two guys we've left behind. Let's have a quick rewind and see where the flashing icons are. So we also lost our FO, who had lost their initial movement orders, actually. They weren't supposed to just be standing there. They were supposed to, I think, take up position in one of these houses. Frustrating, but okay, we can deal with that. And then, is it from this squad? No, these guys are okay. Yeah, this team lost a couple of pixel trooping as well, but not the worst considering I've got so many guys in the open. And we can see they have got some armour moving in. They've been along this road and some along here. So in terms of, I mean, the conditions are, obviously you can see it's raining, so that is going to put some risk if they go really open ground, but if they've got kind of tracked tanks, less of a concern. And one hope is that he's at some point going to peak the ridge and my AT gun will get a pop at him. We'll have to wait and see. I'm happy with the guys going into buildings. I think that's okay. They should be relatively well protected. Not perfect, but they'll have an element of protection. I'm a little bit more nervous about these guys coming round who are essentially were planned to be in the open. I might have to move them into a building instead, but I definitely need to have some kind of troop support around here. Because I don't want them to kind of open up an additional angle on Gretel, and certainly don't want them to try and get in behind and obtain any kind of position in here. It would just be an absolute nightmare for us. So I'm going to, perhaps against better judgment, but I'm going to kind of keep committed to this movement round to the right. Yeah, no other spots across the map. Okay. So not much more for it. This button will behave itself. Hang on a minute. Okay, just misbehaving for unknown reasons, but it's sorted itself out now. Oh no, in fact it took both my clicks. And so we're running into the next minute. Luckily, I didn't really have many orders I wanted to issue, so I'm not overly concerned about that. Okay, we hear it moving back. See, I think, certainly if I was, if I was considering the Germans and where I push down this road into here, certainly offers a good opportunity to stay relatively well covered from my main line. So I wouldn't be overly surprised if they took that. Thankfully no additional bombardment this turn, he says as the mortars drop. How did that injure you? I mean, that's just crazy. Yeah, picking up a few more losses here and there. Oof. Okay. So again, another guy down. So we are going to be pretty thin on the ground by the time these barrages finish. I think unfortunately now they're in the middle of them. They're going to have to stay in the middle of them. These guys seem to be doing okay so far. A bit of luck more than anything else. I would like to move this FO out, even if it's not the observer anymore. Yeah, oh, he doesn't even have binoculars actually. But he does have the radio and will be able to call in the artillery quicker than others. So I might move him into one of these positions. The question is how comfortable I'm making him go for it. Probably not very, but maybe a case of it's better now than waiting. In fact, I will do that. I'm just going to tell him to get up into level 2 there. I'm also going to tell him not to engage unless someone's right in front of you. Because you just need to spot people and then call in artillery. Although I'm surprised you don't have binoculars. But there you go. Yeah, I suppose one side of being defensive you don't think about is when it is the enemy just dropping artillery on your head, you kind of just have to sit there and suck it up, which I don't particularly like. But on the plus side, the more time it burns, then the closer we are to our reinforcements. And the more we learn about what they're up to, we don't really, apart from that there's probably a tank back here. And that given all the artillery drops, they're likely to be kind of pushing down this side, which I may want to consider moving some of these reserve platoons over into these houses. Let's just have a quick look at the ground level. And if they came into these houses at said ground level, would they get any view along here? A little bit. A little bit. I mean, yes, we could certainly bring them up a level. In fact, it might be worthwhile to do it. No, I'm not sure you've got the best angle. So I was considering moving the troops I've got here, which are currently sitting essentially a bit of a reserve section, over into these buildings to provide some additional angles onto any troops pushing down here. I think this house should have it, and I suppose I can always just move them across if we actually see those emerge. So we should have reasonable line of sights from these guys. Okay, I've talked myself out of making any changes just yet. So the only thing to do is to push on and hope that the next minute isn't quite so painful. Let's give ourselves a reasonable view. And we'll just go for it. Also, buildings are remarkably sturdy, you know, taking direct hits and not a lot happens to them, which is good. Yeah, first injury of these tripwire guys over here. Obviously, certainly as you head towards modern era combat missions, then you can absolutely get off-map artillery, which just wipes buildings. Okay, these dudes have made it into position. So I haven't broken down their section yet. I probably will break off at least one team and get them set up in the building, just provide a little bit kind of different angles of attack and a bit more visibility. Beyond that, I'll probably leave them where they are. We can actually go and have a look at the detail of that once this minute ends. Well, that's interesting. So, okay, a light tank was spotted. Or heard, I should say. We've not spotted anything. But again, unless this AT gun can get sight of it, which might be a bit tricky, we're not going to be able to take it out. So let's take a look at you. And let's jump into command zone. Mode, even. Go to target. Yeah, you can see a couple of bits past this hedge. But not huge amounts. So you can see the odd line, odd gap through these where we can get a shot. Down here, apparently not. You can see where the line turns from dark blue to pink is where they lose sight. Interesting. It seems to be almost this fence is causing you problems. I'm slightly surprised about. So yeah, which was a bit of a fear when I was setting up. We do have an AT team in here, which actually I will quickly throw an armor arc on, because I don't want you guys engaging. Honestly, probably 100 meters. And I'm tempted to push these guys forward into this building as well. Again, they might draw fire. The question is how. I mean, if they're obviously sending armored units in, they're coming down this road. Now, the only ways out of this complex are either they blast a hole in the wall, or they got to drive in along here. I suppose in which case, in fact, we'll have to take out that wall, but which can be done. Tanks can drive over it. Risk of immobilization, but certainly not unachievable, and come out this road, or again pop a hole in that road. And perhaps what we want to do is actually move these guys over into, say, this building. And then if you do get eyes on a tank, armor, light vehicle, words, then we can take a pop at that. Meanwhile, these troops, we absolutely want to break these guys down. Yeah, we'll do that. I'll do that. Go for a pause, I'll do that and I'll show you where I've put them. Alright, so I've set those orders up. I've got the Bren team coming into the first story of this building. And the reason for that is that I don't want to put him in the second story, because I think that's probably an easier spot from any artillery support they have out in this field. So I'd rather keep them in the first story. Okay, well, our view's a little bit impaired, but so's the enemies. And I've kept the kind of officer with his Sten gun and a couple of rifles in this corner, and I'm moving a couple of just riflemen into the second story of this building, just to be, I suppose, a bit more forward position, perhaps draw a bit more fire, so our kind of bigger guns can get involved. I have also thrown a kind of engagement radius on all three of these units, because I don't want them, again, spotting someone out here at, you know, far in a distance, taking a pot shot of in effect and giving their position away. And then facing the bigger guns of the enemy artillery. I did contemplate using my mortars just to kind of preemptively drop some mortars along here, but I decided to hold off and maybe give the Germans another minute to get forward before I commit anything. I suppose the other thing I've got to figure out is, do I want to bring any more reinforcements over? And I probably will. So I should have a platoon hanging about somewhere. That definitely not you. You are just a driver of a blown up Bren. You are my IC. Oh no, I pulled them up into here, didn't I? So much for being in reserves. They're actually sitting in the front of my line. I mean, I could pull them out. Makes me a little bit exposed. And I've still got another 15 minutes before I get any more infantry support. But this has me a little concerned, and I think I would rather some more bodies over here. So that's what I'll do. So let's pull these guys back. The hope being that before the Germans push at a second angle, we can get some more supporting troops in here. Just make your way along the front, essentially, or the back, I'm going to call it. Right, that'll do, and we'll see how the next minute plays out before we decide exactly what to do with you. Good. Okay, let's give us a position where we can kind of see at least everything, just in case we get some additional spots around the corner. But I'm quite keen to see what happens with this light infantry spot, or light armor spot on the right hand side. So it did say that obviously they were supported by Tiger tanks plus other armoured vehicles. Oh man, they are pounding the area. So perhaps some half tracks. There goes another Bren carrier. Not obviously tucked out of the way enough. And a few random casualties, unfortunately. But to be honest, oh, that's unfortunate. I can't afford to take a lot of hits on my AT guns. Here's another tank spot. Interesting. So yeah, it's almost better that they pound this area, because if they'd gone for the centre, they could really have done some damage. Okay, tanks moving out. So I'm really glad I pulled these guys back, because they would not have stood up posed any challenge at all to you know, any kind of tank. Okay, again a very quiet turn. So our AT gun should be in position. Yes, he is. Let me jump out of the review phase. Just want to check his line of sight to the center area. I had hoped when I was first previewing it that it was going to get up with a little bit of a kind of keyhole. That doesn't seem to be the case. I think I moved perhaps one square too far over. Perhaps. Question is, do I get them to move? In fact, I probably will. Let's get these guys to move ever so slightly forward. Again, I don't want to push them too far forward, because obviously the Germans could take a position along this hedge relatively easily. And let's face probably over there to begin with until we get any other reason not to. I wonder, can you get in here and drive it out of the way? Because I'd rather it wasn't just sitting there as a pretty large beacon that we've got some troops there. So unfortunately we did take a hit on our AT gun, but thankfully just to one guy. But yeah, it could cause a lot of problems if they get taken out. Meanwhile, a few scrapes and bumps I think in here. Yeah, minor injury. Yeah, okay. But again, not a lot I can do about that. Have to kind of take it on the chin. Okay, I say we'll play one more minute, and then we'll draw this video to a close. Let's see if we actually get any hard spots of enemy units. No, they just seem to be, I suppose, preparing for an attack rather than actually pushing in yet. Which makes sense. I suppose a sensible thing to do. We cleared out the kind of initial grounds, and they obviously know I'm going to be strong in here. Let the artillery do a bit of work before pushing in. Ooh, another light tank spot. Or it could be, I say like tank, could be an armoured vehicle, could be a half-track. Could be all sorts of things. Ah, first spot of actual Germans. Let's throw a quick pause. It's a momentous occasion. Where have they got to? Just running across the open field. And spotted by our rifleman up here, okay. I suspect just infantry dudes, yeah, well, and of course, as ever, MG 34 or 42. Still can't tell them apart. One day I'll be able to. Probably when I play as the Germans. They both hurt to be on the wrong end of. Okay, at least we've got... We're not surprised, because suspected we're going to push in this way, but again, I'm quite content to let them kind of get into the orchard. I will definitely order my mortars to start dropping stuff along this line. Oh, it's a... Yeah, definitely a push in force, and I might have to reposition this machine gun to counter as well. So that is a reasonable pop we've seen. So, yeah, definitely a good number of troops coming in. You'll probably see engaged relatively soon, and we'll get these guys to yeah, just unload everything along this hedge, make their life difficult. Okay, but at us over the 35-minute mark, so all that will have to wait until the next video. So a bit of a slow start with these ones, but at least we ended with a solid confirmation of where the Germans are, and we'll definitely be getting stuck into it next time. But thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.